Your wedding day is going to go by so fast. And in order to be present to what is happening, you need to know what's happening that day. Not just the fact that you're getting married, but when you need to be done getting ready by, what time your ceremony actually starts, when you're going to have people at the reception. All these things you need to plan for so that they can run smoothly. So today, I'm going to show you a very generic wedding day timeline so that you can use this as the starting point to plan your Catholic wedding. I'm Laura Ansmid, and I help Catholic couples navigate engagement so they are present and prepared for their wedding day and life as newlyweds. Part of being present and prepared for your wedding day is having a plan. And I don't just mean knowing what time you're getting married at, but actually knowing more of the details. And I don't think this means that you need to be the one running the show on your wedding day. In fact, you should definitely have someone else in charge of all the details on the actual day of. But you should know at least when you need to be ready to leave for the church and when you're going to have people start coming to the reception. I mean, those are things that are helpful to know and that you probably do need to know. So I am going to walk you through a timeline. In just a second, I will show you my screen. I'll show you a timeline. But first, I want to share a few things that are helpful when you are starting to plan your day. Now, the first thing, and I have said this in probably every video I have done about wedding planning, you need to set expectations for your wedding day. I have a free download that I'll link in the notes about setting expectations with yourself and with your fiance about what you want this day to hold and any details that you want to incorporate to make this the best day ever. You need to talk about that before you make any of your other plans. So when you have your expectations done, then you can make the timeline according to what is important to you. Right? Great. Okay, on the same page here. So make sure that's done. Once that is done, then you can get into planning all the details, including the timeline. So another thing to keep in mind about the timeline is that a wedding day just takes longer than other days. I don't mean the day is going to go fast. It's going to go by in the blink of an eye, but there are lots of moving parts that need to be done on that day. So bear in mind that things just take longer. And I mean, getting ready takes a little bit longer because it's a special occasion. For guys, not so much, but for girls, definitely. And the fact that you're wearing a dress that you haven't worn before and isn't your normal dress, like maybe you're wearing a giant ball gown and it's so fun and awesome, but it just does take longer to move in that kind of a dress than jeans. So keep that in mind. The other thing too about everything taking a little bit longer is that people are going to be stopping you during the day to say hello and congratulate you and whatnot. So keep that in mind as well, that it's not just you moving from one place to another. It's allowing time for interruptions so that you can be present to the person who is interrupting you. Because we want to be interruptible, right? We don't want to just be rushing from one thing to the next. That's not a way to live life. We want to be present to people, especially people that we've invited to this special day and want to share in our joy. So things just take a little bit longer, and that's fine. We just need to plan for it. Another thing to keep in mind is that your ceremony time actually dictates a lot of your wedding day. I am a wedding photographer, and I use natural light to do all the portrait time on a wedding day. So ceremony time and sunset time, those are the two things that really influence portraits. And not that your day is all about photos, but it is nice to have beautiful photos from the day that aren't, with an off-camera flash and whatnot. I mean, if that's your style, that's a different thing, but I imagine that you probably want some natural light photos. Where this comes into play most often is if you're getting married in the winter, because sunset is so much earlier. So if you really want to get married at 3 p.m. in December, you can do that, but you need to take some things into consideration. The fact that if your mass goes for an hour or more, it's going to be 4 p.m. or later, and there will be no natural light left. So you'll probably need to do all your photos before the ceremony. And that's great if you're happy with that. But if you don't really want to see each other beforehand, you probably want to consider changing your ceremony time. So you can see why your ceremony time is so important. I will go over one ceremony time in this example in just a minute, but I will also have a free download in the notes. I have 2 downloads for you today. This download will be 3 different wedding day timelines based on 3 different ceremony times so that you can see what might be best for you and when you're getting married, taking a sunset into consideration perhaps, and all the other plans that you want for the day. I do want you to remember that as I go through this timeline, it is a starting point. I mean, it's a great timeline. I know people use it all the time. This is one of the ones I give to my couples most often. But if you want to incorporate something different than what's on here, go ahead and do it. This is just a starting point. So I just want to reiterate that again. And my last thing that I really think that you should know about timelines is that it is great for you as a couple to have this timeline, but more people need to know about it, okay? There are people, like your guests get an invitation, and maybe you have more info on your wedding website too about your ceremony time and your reception time, and so they know where they need to be and when. But your family and your bridal party need a little more info than that, okay? So if you want to do family photos, you need to tell your family when and where they need to be so that no one rushes off and doesn't get in the photo, or that, it derails the timeline if you're waiting for someone to come back and all that. So once you've made your timeline, share it with your family and your bridal party. I make all my timelines for my couples in Google Docs, and they can easily share it with them, either like literally sharing the document or saving it as a PDF and emailing it out to everyone once it's kind of finalized and done. This way you're just setting expectations with everybody that's close to you and actually needs to have more information so that they have a clear expectation from you about what you need and want from them that day. So without further ado, let's get into this document. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously you can see me. If you're listening to this just on a podcast, I will narrate it for you as well. And you can also find the download. So you could download the PDF and follow along as we go. So this is the wedding guide. It is a product I have available for purchase. I can link it for you as well. It is a walkthrough of all the decisions you need to plan your dream Catholic wedding. And it has so much information in it, but we are going to skip right ahead to wedding day timelines. So many pages. Okay, wedding day timelines. And I am going to just scroll right on down and show you some samples. So I have in here, this is what you're going to get in the download: a morning ceremony time, an early afternoon ceremony time, and a late afternoon ceremony timeline. I'm going to walk you through the early afternoon ceremony timeline because this is the most common one that people use. It's best for basically all seasons, especially if there is a cocktail hour you want to attend at your wedding in the summer. So let's just get started. This timeline is from a photographer's perspective because these are the main things that I need to photograph to tell the story of your day. So keep that in mind. I will explain a bit more as we go. So for this early ceremony timeline, your ceremony is at 1 o'clock. So that is the thing that is dictating everything else on this timeline. The ceremony time might depend more on your church as well, because oftentimes they'll offer 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and 3 p.m. But sometimes they offer a 12 and 2 instead. You know, if they're doing multiple weddings on a day, that's usually the schedule. Take this with a grain of salt and plan accordingly. Okay. So if your ceremony is at 1 p.m., you probably need to leave by 12:30. And again, like I said earlier, things take longer. So travel time just takes longer. If you think it's going to take, okay, you know, here's a real example. If you know that it takes you 17 minutes door to door from your house to your church, you know that's what it is. Every single week when you go to Mass, that's what it is. Great. I'm going to round up to 20 right off the bat. And we're probably going to say it's going to take 30 minutes. So whatever time it usually takes you, add another half of that. So 20 minutes, add another 10 minutes for 30 minutes. If you live in a city, you need to add more time than that for city traffic. If you are getting married on a long weekend, add more time. It is always, always, always better to be early than to be even on time or late. What's that saying? If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. That is totally the deal here, because you don't want to be late to your own wedding. That's bad. And B, you don't want to be disrespectful of all the people that are there as well. I mean, I'm all for if you are early and you kind of start at like 5 minutes past your ceremony time, that's to let the stragglers kind of come in. That's not for you to be late, in my humble opinion. Okay, so if your ceremony's at 1, you need to leave, let's say at 12:30. And I always recommend that the groom and the groomsmen leave earlier than that. This is really the girls leaving at 12:30. The groom and groomsmen should probably be at the church half an hour before the ceremony. And I also recommend that whatever time you have to leave, at least 30 minutes before that, the bride is putting on her dress. This is helpful because if something goes wrong, like on my wedding day, I had a zipper and the little like butterfly claspy thing, it popped off. So the thing you hook and then you zip up, the one part of it popped off. So we tried to sew it back on, and just the design of the thing, it didn't lend well to that. So chucked it, and we just put the zipper like on the other side. Anyway, it was fine. But having that extra time padded in made it so that we weren't rushing. I wasn't getting all sweaty, thinking, oh my gosh, we need to leave soon. We had padded the time. And this is also helpful if you are if you have a corset back, because you're going to need even more time than what is on this timeline. Anyway, so in the morning, if you know that you need to be in your dress at noon, or that you need to be leaving at noon for the church, how long is hair and makeup going to take before that? And I would say even to ask hair and makeup to be done 20, 30 minutes before that, so that you have time to eat, to go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, like all that stuff. And you're not worried about making sure your mascara is on. From a photography standpoint, I like to arrive a little bit earlier than the bride just putting her dress on, because photographing the details of the day, like the invitation suite, all 3 rings, the engagement in both wedding bands, any flowers, anything that is being used on the day, like the dress, oh my gosh, the dress, the veil, the shoes, all that stuff helps to set the tone for the visual part of the day. All these details that you have spent time collecting and maybe are sentimental to you, we want to showcase those in beautiful flat lays and just in other ways, so that the visual arc of your day can be cohesive. That usually takes me about 30, 45 minutes for the bride's details, and then I photograph just the last of girls getting ready. So that's like the last of hair, the last of makeup, maybe even just like a touch up after, brushing your teeth, that kind of stuff. And If you have a second photographer, which I often do, they can arrive to the guy's house a little bit later because guys take less time. So I opt to start at about 10:30 in the morning for a 1 p.m. ceremony day, and then my second shooter usually around 11. I do shoot weddings a lot by myself, and if you want both girls and guys getting ready photos, it just means longer hours of coverage, because I'll go to the guys first and then to the girls. And anyway, let's keep going. 10:30, photograph bride's details, lots of girls getting ready. 11 a.m., the second photographer arrives to shoot the groom's details, and the last of guys getting ready. 12 p.m., bride puts on the dress, groom and the groomsmen leave for the church. 12:30, the girls leave for the church. 1 o'clock, your ceremony begins. And then typically a Catholic wedding mass, like a full wedding mass, takes over an hour. I mean, a regular mass takes an hour, and so this generally takes about an hour and a half, maybe. It might be less, but again, you want to pad the time so that if it runs even longer than that, that's okay. But if it runs shorter, you're just running ahead of schedule, and that is always better than behind. As soon as your ceremony ends, you process out of the church and all your guests follow, and you can say hi to them. Having a receiving line at this point in the day is a natural way to go about it. And the receiving line is really for your guests. I mean, you are probably going to just be on cloud nine, just receiving the graces of the sacrament. Wonderful, just the best feeling ever. And at this point, your guests just want a little piece of you. They just want to say hi. They want to congratulate you. They want to share in your joy. And this is a great way to have them do that. So they can come and give you a hug, maybe take a selfie, whatever. If you're having some guests only come to the ceremony and not the reception, this is a great way for you to see them as well. I usually put in 30 minutes on the timeline for this because, they take probably 20 minutes, but having that little extra buffer is super helpful if you just want to be calm. I don't want to rush you. I don't want to rush you through actually saying hi to your guests and celebrating with them in that moment. I want you to feel peaceful and present to everyone on that day. So having a receiving line, doing it for that long, wonderful. And then I recommend doing your family photos at the church right after. So if your ceremony ends at 2:30, at 3 o'clock, we're doing family photos at the church. And I recommend this because your family is already there. If you have a small family, or if it's only grown-ups or adults in your family at this point, maybe you're the first to get married, you can do family photos somewhere else potentially, but like at your portrait location. But I really recommend doing them at the church because everyone is there. And then if people need to go and do something for the reception or, help host guests, they are free to go and do that right away. Doing them at the church just saves a lot of time and wrangling of people. And the list that I give my couples is, it takes about half an hour just to get people in and out, because I don't rush these photos because these are important, and I want you to feel present to the people that are with you that day. I want you to be able to remember these moments in your day and not just feel like, oh my gosh, that was a blur. I don't remember anything. We will go through them quickly. Like, it won't be painful, but it will be calm. Yeah. And then after family photos, one important note is that honestly, doing family photos in the church is not ideal most often, okay? First of all, if your church offers 11, 1, and 3 ceremonies and you were getting married at 1 and someone else is getting married at 3, you won't be able to do photos in the church. You'll have to do them outside. So there's that to keep in mind. And then the second thing is that a lot of the times the light in churches is not as flattering as finding a spot of natural light outside. Some churches are. If your church faces east-west it will probably be beautiful. But if your church does not, or if there's just not very much natural light, opting to do family photos outside will be better. I'm sure your photographer will agree with me. Anyway, so family photos are done. 3:30, you leave for your photo location and have a snack. I'm all about making sure you are fed on your wedding day. You should probably eat something before you put your dress on, absolutely. And then having a snack. You know, you might be too excited to eat earlier in the day. And then so by the time photo time runs around, you are going to be starving. And this snack, I generally say to have it pre-packed. Assign someone in your bridal party or someone outside of your bridal party, I don't care who it is, assign them the task of keeping you fed that day. And bring a cooler, bring some water, all that stuff, because you're going to be hungry. And being hangry for photos, no, let's not. Let's not. And I also recommend, I know I put 3:30 here and then bridal party photos at 4. So I really recommend, how many times am I going to say recommend in this video? I think that you should plan for a photo location between 15 to 20, maybe 30 minutes away from your ceremony and reception venues, because you don't want to spend all day in the car. Yeah, that's about it. You don't want to spend all day in the car. Let's just not. There's going to be a spot, okay? There's going to be a spot. So doing bridal party photos at 4, and then bride and groom portraits at 4:30, leaving for your reception at 5, especially if you want to be at your cocktail hour, arriving there, you know, around 5:30, you can go freshen up and go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do, and then sneak into your cocktail hour if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine. You could probably take more time for photos. I'm sure your photographer would be glad to do that. I would. So I'll speak on behalf of photographers. And then, you know, you could plan your grand entrance. If you want to do a grand entrance, you do not have to. My husband and I absolutely did not want to do that. I mean, I probably would have been fine with it. But Brandon does not like to be the center of attention. And I wanted to honor that. So we just arrived and kind of slipped in and started drinking G&Ts with our guests. And it was great. And then I recommend dinner 6:30. This is probably something you need to coordinate with your caterers or whoever is making you food. And then during dinner, don't do anything else. You need to eat. You've paid money for this food. You need to eat it. You need the energy. You need to sit and have a rest. That's first. And second, if you want to be present to everything that is happening on your wedding day, you can't multitask. You can't eat and listen to toast at the same time. Either the person giving the toast is going to have a hard time collecting the room because everyone is eating, or if you're having wait staff come and collect plates, like it's just not ideal. It'll be loud too. You won't be able to hear the person giving the toast, and it's probably super beautiful and touching, but you're not going to really hear it because you've got chicken on your fork and you're trying to eat it. Thirdly, no one, and I mean no one, looks good eating in photos. I know your wedding's not all about the photos, but there's really no point having events happen during the time that you're eating. Not if you want to be present to what's happening. So dinner, usually about an hour. For a buffet dinner, this might be different if you're doing a plated meal. Keep that in mind as well. And then if you want to do something like toasts, dinner at 6:30, toasts at 7:30. And the general way that toasts go is that in whatever order you want, there's probably some set order, but here's just the, best man, maid of honor, parents of the bride, parents of the groom, and you as a couple, maybe to say some thank yous, if you'd like. So that's 5 speeches. Give them 5 minutes each. That's half an hour right there. And so that'll take you right to 8 p.m. And so if this is in the summer, I love to do sunset photos. So they're called golden hour golden hour photos. And I just take like 10, 15 minutes to do these just for something a little different. But really, it's just an excuse for the two of you to have some time alone. And if there isn't a sunset, or if your wedding day, the sunset is earlier and it's dark now, you can still take this time. It'll give your guests a little bit of a break. They can go to the bathroom, they can get another drink, go chat with some people, whatever. But you guys can have a minute to just stop and think about what has happened on this day. Take a minute to collect yourselves, to check in with each other, and just commit to memory what has been happening. Because now you're married. Isn't that wild? That's wild. And then you can come right back on into your reception. And if you're doing like dancing and whatnot, I recommend having dancing start earlier in the evening than later, because why not? Why not have a longer dance party? So if you come in from those golden hour photos or that time alone and go straight into your first dances, wonderful. Then whatever you want for the rest of the evening, you can kind of plan. But this is a pretty generic look at what a wedding day timeline could look like, and a great start for you to plan the actual events of your day. You can grab the free download of these 3 timelines, the morning, the early afternoon, and the later afternoon, and you can start plugging in all the details of your specific day. I hope that's helpful, and good luck planning all the details.